Welcome to Harper Fox Trailblazer Talks. Today we're talking about successfully climbing the leadership ladder, and we are joined by business leader Mark Runciman, Managing Director of Eminox. Eminox drives innovation and success as a valued manufacturer of sustainable engineered solutions. This Queen Award-winning business bridges the gap to a zero-emissions future. Mark himself has worked his way up from shop floor to trailblazing leader with a highly successful track record of turnaround, people and process change. Mark, welcome to Trailblazer Talks.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We're delighted that you're here. So tell us about your journey. How did you get to where you are today?
So I left school, with virtually no qualifications. Well, actually no qualifications.
Yeah.
Really kind of struggled to read and write. So having left school, didn't really know kind of what direction I wanted to go into. Parents were very much, go into the world, find a job, pay your keep, find your way in life and pay your way. So that was kind of the start. Humble sort of background, kind of Scottish-Irish family.
Yeah.
Lived on a council estate in Birmingham.
Birmingham born and bred.
Birmingham born and bred. But great family environment, and taught me the sort of survival techniques that have sort of stuck with me in life, and the great sort of interaction tools. So I was one of four sisters, only boy.
Wow.
My nan lived with me, my aunt lived with me, so just that sort of kind of typical sort of Celtic family. Cousins coming backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
So just a sort of rich sort of upbringing. Okay, so going into a work environment. Having left school, not real sort of clear direction. Didn't really have any guidance from parents. My dad hadn't worked since I was 11. He came from a very sort of factory sort of background. So followed mates, went on a YTS as it was in the time, youth training scheme, into the building industry. Worked in the building industry for 3 to 4 years. There was a downturn, so I came out of the building industry, job in a factory through someone that my mum knew. It was from there that I got my first opportunity, which was probably one of the most difficult decisions that I've made in my career. As I go on, there's been a lot of tough decisions that I've had to make, but this was probably the first and probably one of the hardest, really, because it was a decision of breaking from the fabric of the kind of the community that I was raised in, and to cross that line from being a shop floor worker off the clock onto a management. You just didn't do it, and it was almost a sort of poacher turned gamekeeper. So when this opportunity happened, and the manager who I worked for gave me this opportunity, it was a really difficult choice. And when you've got 99 voices around you saying, don't do that, but that one inner voice is saying, this is a critical moment in your life. This could be something that changes, the rest of your life, the rest of your working life.
Yeah.
And that stayed with me.
That's so powerful.
Oh, it really is. To listen to that, to listen to that inner voice, and as you go through your kind of lower supervisory management days, a lot of what you, and even to mid-manager, a lot of what you actually work with is data. You're working with statistics, data. You're working with process. But the further you get in your career, you're actually listening. The data is actually not available, so you're working more with your inner voice. One thing, that gut voice that over the years you learn to live with, learn to develop that and listen to that and hone that skill, because for me that is a natural part of leadership. But it starts in those infant days. So
that's brilliant.
So I took that opportunity, and through that opportunity started to work with the Open University, which is an absolutely fantastic institution, business school. They sort of helped and coached me, and with the reading, the writing, the one finger typing, all of those kind of things, and it was a long, painful process. But the information, as much as information as they gave me, the more I absorbed, and I just loved and flourished it, and I was quite happy to make difficult decisions. I was quite happy to take accountability, stand by decisions, but at the same time, understanding, the one thing you learn in early management, in your early management career, especially at that sort of lower working level, is consistency and understanding. That you've got to be fair to everyone. And the moment you deviate from that, you have a lot of people that work for you, and the delivery of the message may be different, but the message itself has to be consistent.
Yeah.
So that in itself is quite a skill. So from there, I was working at TimeIt for all in all for about 10 years, and then there was an opportunity of voluntary redundancy, and I'll never forget it. It was an opportunity that came, and I look at it as an opportunity. Some people would have said, "Well, it's redundancy, and it's kind of a cold word."
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But again, it was an inner voice, and it was an inner voice that said, "If I don't go now, I'll never go."
Okay, yeah. So it was another pivotal moment then.
Oh,
really.
Absolutely. And I looked at the situation and I thought, well, how far could I really go with this?
Yeah.
So I did it. I made the decision. I took the voluntary redundancy. I left, and it was that was an educational experience. So it was kind of been manager level there. So I've been an area manager within in TimeIt. But again, I got aspirations. I knew there was just so much more, and was always open to a challenge. Always loved the continuous improvement kind of methodology, and loved taking something that was almost like a knotted ball of string and creating a sense of clean lines, purpose, process, repeatability. And this is when the lean journey was really starting to take off within the UK. Toyota production system. So I really became quite a geek, sort of reading all the information around that.
An expert.
Do you know what? Not an expert. However, I just had a real sort of passion for it.
Okay.
So from there, I went to work for a Honeywell business.
Yeah.
So again, interesting job. Very different organisation from what I was used to. It was building materials. It was an acquisition by Honeywell, and again, you should never be afraid to say, it just didn't work. It was one of those. I come from heavy industry and the transition, and I really sort of struggled.
Yeah, and I think that's really honest.
And you should never be afraid to say that, because during my learning process was the fact that, and what I had to learn was, different environments, different cultures, just different buildings, people. You need to be able to flex and change.
Yeah.
That came at a time when there was another bit of a drop. So TimeIt was predominantly making titanium for the aerospace industry. So aerospace was pretty much what I knew. There was a role came available, and I was headhunted to go to Goodrich.
Not by me, by the way.
No, not by you. So that felt right for the first time in a long time. There was something that felt right, and that was, for me personally, it was one of the most educational sort of journeys that I went on through people management, through process, the lean tools and the education, and that's where I would say I became more of an expert. The training and the support and the strategy and the people philosophy that Goodrich adopted was just out of this world.
And I was going to ask, when you said it felt right, so was it from a cultural perspective, or it was more just that kind of that training and development piece? It sounds like it was really strong as well. All of it,
and as corporate environments go, it was pretty fluid compared to other corporates that I've worked with. We was part of a joint venture with Rolls-Royce, and that was interesting because that was a fusion of two cultures. So you're kind of seeing a very American can-do attitude. Very much, the right person for the job is the guy who did the job the best last, rather than a bit of a job for the boys. That's how it kind of felt. So there was that kind of fusion, and that was kind of difficult. So I worked at Goodrich for a number of years. And I made my transition then into programs away from operations, because all my background has always been operations.
Yeah.
But I loved programs because it was the first opportunity I got to holistically look at a business from front to end, from the customer all the way back to supply chain and then back to the customer, and then engineering all the way through that and the development processes. And that was fantastic. And that, for me, really tapped into what my skill set was. Not particularly an expert in one thing, but really got a good appreciation of a lot of things, and the ability to get a number of people from different functions to hold hands and get things done.
But strategy and influence.
Absolutely. And influence is, it's a key word.
Yeah.
Throughout my career, people say, "Why have you got that done in such a short amount of time?" And I go, many hands make light work. And it's the ability to actually pull people together, to actually, we're all in the boat and we're all rowing in the same direction, in the same drumbeat. And that, I think it's a natural thing, that is.
And that's what I'm trying to kind of get to grips with, to be honest, because I'm listening to you and it's a lot of this seems kind of, like it's quite innate to you. And I'm thinking for people that are looking at you, like you said, you come from quite humble beginnings actually, you didn't go straight into the world of university and you weren't exactly completely clear in terms of which direction that you wanted to go in. So for those people that are looking at you thinking, I want to be, the next managing director or CEO of a business, how might they go about doing that?
I think there's no one clear path, and I think what I've got twins 21, and what sometimes I feel quite uncomfortable with they're both going down a business route at university, and they constantly keep being pushed to almost make a decision on what they want to be and what the path is, and I just find that really, at the times I think it's really uncomfortable, because life should be a journey and it should be fun, and you should be expected from time to time to have bumps in the road.
Yeah.
That is fundamentally the rich tapestry of life, and from if everyone said I'm starting at A and I'm going to go to F, and there was B, C, D, E was always,
how boring that would be.
It'd be absolutely boring. And life should be a bit of an adventure, that things happen and it takes you by surprise. And again, I keep saying to my kids, sometimes the worst things that happen can actually be the best things.
They're the things that build you.
They really are, or you just wouldn't have assumed that would have been for you. But then, because you've had a certain view, or there's been a certain stigma with something, you've actually made that choice because you was pushed that way, unbeknowing, and it's turned out to be the best thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think unless you've got that innate passion, I wanted to be one of those people. But when I'm young, I had family members who were really clear about what their passion was and what they wanted to do. And I was thinking, I don't really know. The only thing I knew was I want to be successful. I want to be successful. That was it. And then that kind of led me down a road of kind of exploring lots of different things, really, and probably in some ways falling into the world of recruitment and search. But then within that, I found actually there's purpose, and then things have evolved from there. So no, I think you're absolutely right. I think to know what you want to do for the rest of your life in your early 20s, for some people, they're tuned in, but actually for the vast majority of people, they're not, and it continues to change, doesn't it?
I'm 49 years of age, and I still don't know what I want to do. And do you know what? And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there's
it's
anything...
It's really honest as well.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with, 49. You've got there's so much life in front of you that at a certain point I might decide I want to do something different.
Yeah.
And again, adopting the same mentality of, well, why wouldn't I do that? Why couldn't I do that?
Yeah.
So I think mindset is massive. And just open to whatever comes your way.
Yeah, that's great. That's really, really powerful. Thanks, Mark. Yeah.
So from programs in Goodrich, I went back to parent company. As I just said, we had the joint venture, so I went back to the parent company.
Yeah.
And Goodrich has been taken over by United Technologies, so I went back into the aftermarket part of the business. Developed a programs team there for all of the new Rolls-Royce platforms for the aftermarket, for the control systems. So highly complex, a lot of travel. This is kind of where my career really started to sort of ramp up. A lot of exposure at a sort of senior level, making some big financial decisions, covering Singapore, Dubai, Europe.
It's a whole different level.
Yeah, and just that's when you get into, that there is a lot of sacrifice.
We're going to go on to that.
So there is a lot of sacrifice. So you know, you don't get nothing for nothing.
Yeah.
And I think you need to be prepared for that. But yeah, so loads more exposure. So on the back of that, corporate world, and we were going through an ethics module. So for anyone that works in, especially in the American corporate world, every 6 to 12 months you go through an ethics module and you do a refresher. And I just sat there and I just thought, I don't really want to do this another year.
Okay, it's done its time now.
Yeah, so I've done my time, I've done my corporate time, and I chose to leave. I'd been approached randomly by a headhunter, again, not you.
Not me again.
So I've been approached, and it was to join a privately owned business. There was an MD that had joined. He'd come through from automotive, auto controls, and it was my first sort of step outside of corporate world, really.
Yeah.
And,
So
I
that's
joined,
huge. That's huge. Yeah. Lots of people don't do that step at all.
Lots of promises. I was going there, and there was winning this and going to win that, and it just didn't turn out the way when I finished my notice period and arrived there. And there was a couple of projects that were available for me to work on. One of those was to set up a facility in India.
Okay.
So setting up automotive capability in India, and that was fantastic, and that was probably one of the best journeys of my life. I learned so much from that experience. Originally started going out there, and I was stopping in a hotel, and eventually with a joint venture partner out there, I was sort of living in his home with his family.
Oh, wow.
And probably a life is Ulas is a friend for life. He's just a genuinely amazing person, and that was a fantastic experience. But that lasted for the 6 months, and then there wasn't really a lot there after that. So it was another one of those situations really where it didn't really work out. And then I look back and I was like, well, you ask yourself the questions, well, I've made this wrong choice, but it's just part of life. I've made a decision, I've made a choice, it didn't quite work out. I've met a good friend in there as well with the MD, Runciman, who we worked together a couple of times. So we came to a decision, I left, and then I was in quite a unique position then, which was I'd worked for corporate, I'd been approached, I'd got jobs, I had to find a job.
Yes, because you've never been that side of the fence.
I think I met you then.
Yeah.
And I'd never been that, I'd never had to go and find a job, so there was the whole, for anyone that's out there at the moment in quite a difficult time, writing a CV, getting your LinkedIn to where it needs to be, that you're getting, people approaching you, and you're, and understanding there's your CV's got to be accepted, and you go through the first interview, then you get, you're successful with that, and then you're not, then you go to your second interview, and you learn how to close the deal, and I went through that process, and so I did some contracting work. I really enjoyed a bit of that, dropping in, problem solving, turnarounds, kind of stuff.
Yeah, right up your street.
Yeah, so really enjoyed that. So a couple of jobs with that, and then eventually George Richell, so I was working with George again.
Yeah.
He got in touch with me and said, look, I've got some work. It's with a business called Eminox. They're up in Lincolnshire, Gainsborough. A lot of work to do. Been a successful business, going through some really difficult times. Would you be happy to come here? They're trying to set up, do some work in China. And I just remember driving up the car park and looking at the sign. It was a brand new facility.
It's
and
a very nice facility.
It's beautiful, beautiful facility. And I just thought, wow, I'm really going to enjoy being the MD here. It's a strange feeling. So Giles, if you're watching.
So just to clarify, actually, at that point you were going in as what?
I was going in as like a project lead for them. So
but you already kind of had aspirations, thinking,
yeah,
I could be the MD.
And within about 6 weeks, Giles had said, look, we'll just stop on. There's a lot of work to do here. We'll just stop on and be the operations director. So, and the business itself, 29 million turnover. They've lost a couple of million for the first time in the history. Privately owned by David Mills, who is just the most amazing. Yeah. He's the most amazing gentleman. So it was a business in some difficulties, and he asked me and said, "Would you start?" And I did. And 5 years on, we're highly successful, and turnover has increased by 190 to 100% now.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And a 7 million swing on the bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Mark. That's incredible. Yeah, it's incredible. And I think that leads us on really nicely, actually. I was going to ask you, you just touched on a couple there, but some of the big achievements, I suppose, since you've been at Eminox.
Well, I think obviously the big one is the Queen's Award. I think to get that acknowledgement, and it was our first year of being asked to enter, and I think that's generally quite unheard of. We were a retrofit business. So when I say retrofit, existing buses that are out on the roads, we take their exhaust system from a Euro 3 or Euro 4, and we take them up to Euro 6 standard. So for TfL in London, we won, I think it was about 65% of that work. So we were a retrofit business that did some OEM, some original equipment manufacture, and we turned the business model. So we became an OEM business that did some retrofit.
Do you know, I hadn't realised that. That's a huge
it was
transition.
And it was all about process capability. So
Wow.
the customer from a retrofit perspective, the quality management systems aren't the same. It's very much, we manufacture the kit, you go down, you fit it onto the bus, and as long as go through the checks.
It's a different world.
Yeah, as long as you've gone through, you prove the kit's out that it works and it gives the NOx results that you're looking for. You're good to go. In the OEM world, long gestation periods, engineering, going through all of the quality systems, customers constantly auditing you, and it's getting that level of process capability, product capability, and it was turning that and putting that in the business. So it was such a significant change, and it was bringing upskilling into the business. It was about investing in process, people, but the biggest thing that was the change was the culture. The culture was very, very hierarchical. It was very, leadership team up there, the rest of the business, you know where you sit. And for me, I couldn't survive in that environment.
You'd come from the shop floor as well.
Yeah.
So was your perspective different as well? In that you kind of you'd literally gone all through the ranks.
Yeah, and I'd always believed that you should never forget your journey and the people that you've met. And the reality is, everyone that I've met and the people on every level, they're just people.
Yeah.
I'm not very much with a view of we're all there to do a job. We've just got different demands and constraints. We're all gears in the same machine. Some big gears are bigger and different shape of others. But we're genuinely all there. So for me, it was really, really critical that we removed that hierarchy. We've got a flat organisation, and we generated a can-do environment where you're only as strong as your weakest link, and it was a one fail or fail kind of mentality.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there was no finger pointing, there was no blame. For me, it was a case of the first person that said it's not my fault, it was him. Well, the person who pointed the finger was asked to leave the room, because you can't get success on the basis of individuals or with their own agendas.
Yes.
So it was either you bought into what we're doing collectively, or do you know what? Go and find an environment where that individual drive suits you.
Yeah, better.
And over a period of time, there's been a transition in the business. And I always describe change management is the first day that you're there, it's almost like a tug of war. There's you on the one side of the rope and there's everyone else on the other side. And until they understand what you're about, eventually they start to either come over or you start to add people onto your side. Mm-hmm. And that was part of the transition of the business, really. And I think now we have got that very open, inclusive, can-do.
Oh, yeah.
I think humour's a big part as well.
Yeah. Humour's
massive in the business, and you're a long time at work. Yeah. So we've tried to create an environment where job titles aren't important. You're judged on what you do and how you go about business. And there's one thing winning, but your values should drive you that there's winning in the right way. Mm-hmm. And again, as I think, not just in Eminox, in the Hexalix group, that is the parent company of Eminox, that's cascaded down from the owner. He still comes and sees me once a week comes in for a cup of coffee, he's 76 and he's still got an active interest in the business. And I think that's really important. And I like that.
Yeah, well, it shows the passion, doesn't it? And then, like you say, it cascades down. So.
Yeah, and like I say, I like that. I like that he still takes an interest.
Oh, yeah.
He comes in, he doesn't interfere, but he just likes to come in, and I've got a bit of empathy for him. I was talking to my boss Andy Meakin, who's a fantastic guy. We were talking about people's needs, and David's in a situation where all the money in the world couldn't buy the fact that he loves to come to the business once a week. He gets more out of that than any money could ever give him, and he still loves that. And I think that's just so powerful and so amazing. And he's so committed to British manufacturing, and again about that.
And we need that.
Yeah, and I just love that about him. And he's so he wouldn't sell the businesses for all the money in the world, because he's so committed to the fact of what the businesses have grown into and what we're about.
Yeah, no, that is incredible. That's incredible. So you've had some incredible achievements. With that success often comes sacrifices. What have those been for you?
I think, as I've said, you get nothing for nothing in life. And
yes.
That's one thing I say to my kids all the time. There's what you get in your left hand, you lose in your right. Life balances itself. So for me, what I would say is, yes, I've had a fantastic career. Yeah, I've had some really sort of high moments, but there's been lots of time away from home.
Yeah. I
looked at my outlook for last year. And obviously, COVID's had a massive influence on this year. But if I look just at last year, there'd be a week in China, a couple of trips to Europe the following week, then it'd be India the following week, and that's kind of how my career has been over the last really sort of 10 to 15 years. So the real sort of sacrifices, maybe family life.
Yeah.
Maybe not being able to do the hobbies, the things that you like as consistent as you'd want to do those. But you have to accept that, for the gains that you've got in your work life, I see my kids are having fantastic opportunities, the opportunities that I never had.
Yeah. And fantastic role models, because I really think that is so powerful as well. You can't be what you don't say. A real massive advocate of that. So I'd say that those have probably been the biggest sacrifices, and the other sacrifices. I take it really personal. So if we've got 350 employees, I feel I've got 350 mortgages to pay. Yes, yeah.
So that's the sacrifice for me. Is when things aren't going great, I feel genuinely the burden of you're going to pay those mortgages. You put your food on people's tables. And I take that really, really serious. It's really, really serious.
Yeah.
But the upside of that is, when you win, it's just fantastic to share with everyone. I've always been of the mentality that, if you look at the 100 metres in the Olympics and on the podiums, and you see the 4x4 100, what podium would you rather be on? I'd rather be on the 4x4 rather than the individual. The fun that they're having together. And for me, that's what we've been able to do in the business, is really sort of share that success with a lot of people, and that's the upside of it.
Yeah.
So in summary, the sacrifice has probably been probably my own personal family life, and the upside obviously for them, for my family, has been an upside, but for the people that we've touched in the businesses that I've worked where we have had some positive results.
Yeah, some hugely positive results. Yeah. I was just thinking about sacrifices in my life as you were speaking. I was like, yeah, It is. It's that balance, isn't it? So what advice would you offer someone who's just starting out in their career?
What advice would I give? I think to a degree, go with the flow. I wouldn't plan too far ahead.
Okay, that's interesting.
I would say go with the flow. Don't plan too far ahead, and just be open-minded.
Yeah.
And just try lots of things. Don't be constrained by a career path that you've got written down. The steps are logical because life isn't logical.
Yeah.
Not always. And just be open to try different things, and never be constrained by the people around you as well, and listen to your inner voice. If you think it's the right thing to do, then do it, and never be held back by your plan. And by the famous words of Mike Tyson, everyone's got a plan until you get hit in the face. And I think that's such a great quote, because everyone's got a plan until it goes wrong, and the reality is it just does. So be open-minded. And I think the other big one I would say is, and again I quote this quite a lot to a lot of my young managers, unfortunately in life there's more downs than ups. So if you're only ever enjoy the ups, you're going to be pretty miserable most of your life. Embrace the downs as well. Yeah. There's a lot to be taken out of them.
There's a huge amount. That is where you do your growth. That's where you learn about yourself, or you learn about others. Yeah,
and and try and keep a sense of humour. That is so important.
Yeah. So from your perspective, what does it mean to be a leader?
I think to be a leader, it's about creating a vision.
Yeah.
I think it's about creating an environment. It's about creating a can-do attitude. And I think it's about understanding the needs of all your stakeholders. And then to pull all that together, it's about accountability.
Yes.
It's about things happen, whether it's good, positive. When the team does well, the team get the credit. When it's not so well, you stand at the front and you take it on the chin.
Yeah, it's on you.
And I think that is, you'd love to think that happens regular, but some organisations have seen that on a regular basis. It doesn't. For me, I think that's really important. So, and integrity is a massive thing, I think, for being a leader. And it's back to what was instilled in me in my younger part of my career, which is that consistency. Great leaders are consistent. They're open, and they're real. I think real's
authentic. I think you're so right, and I think you exhibit all of those things, but definitely the authenticity part of it. It makes you very relatable straight away, and talk about things you think, I could touch on that with you, and you understand, where I'm coming from. For example,
it always hasn't been like that. I've gone through. I've worked with some really great leadership coaches, and I think all young managers, leaders out there, will all go through imposter syndrome. You look at symbols and you look at how people act, and you associate, well, that's what it must be to be at the top. You must dress like that, you must have that watch, you must have that pair of shoes, you must adopt that kind of characteristic. And the reality, the best leaders for me are the leaders that I came across, and they're just very much themselves.
Yeah.
They wouldn't actually, they probably wouldn't actually be able to characterise themselves. But just so I just do what I do. I think those are the best leaders that I've come across.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely agrees. What are the key things? Well, actually, you've hired and maybe fired. No, you've hired a lot of people. So, what are the key things that you look for, attributes, when you are hiring someone?
What are the key things I look for? So most conversations that I have with anyone looking to join the organisation, and I hate the word interview. I just find it just really, again, it's back to that hierarchical. So I'll have a conversation with someone, and the first thing I'll say in that conversation is, this is a conversation to understand, are we right for you, are you right for us? And it's a marriage, and what you're asking to someone to do is take the commitment that they've got of another employer that pays their bills, and uproot and come and work for you. So I think you have to be so honest and have that adult conversation, because I think that is really important. Talk about the job, talk about the person, find out what is there. For me, if something's on someone's CV, I take it as gospel. That that is a skill set that they can do. Because generally, I'm sort of hiring someone at director level. I'm taking that as green, that they can do that. So what I really want to know is, what is your rear view mirror moment? When you drove away from a place of work, what was that thing that you look back and you go, do you know what, I'm so proud of that. That was something that I did, I was part of it, I influenced. You might not have led it, but you were not part of it. You went, I took something and it was this, and I made it that, and I made a difference. Because for me, as you well know, I'm all about, where did you make a difference? How did you change something? Where did you move the dial?
Yes.
Because I think, you've got to add value. You've got to be seen at the end of your tenure, wherever you've worked, that you came and it was one thing, and you left and it was another.
Yes, and I think to touch on that, how have you done it? So not how has, I don't know, the finance director or the sales director done it. How has Sandra done it, or how has Mike done it? How have you done it?
Yeah, I think in that conversation, it's one of the I think in that environment, when you're talking about a job, it's one of the few times that you can talk about I. And maybe in your PDR, because I think that's fair as well.
Absolutely.
So I think there are a couple of times that you, from a work perspective, you can actually talk about I rather than we. But the we, no matter what, it still needs to be woven in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's really important. And it's all about where did you move the dial.
Yeah.
And some people actually really struggle with that.
Because some people won't have, and this is where it comes back to accountability. Some people may not have been accountable before, which is surprising sometimes when we're talking about, senior levels of people, but that can be the case. And then some people are all about accountability, and they'll look at it straight away and think, what have I done and how do I impact that? Actually, this went really wrong, and that's great. Let's hear all about that. And this is what I learned from that, so I will not be doing that again if I come into your organisation.
Which again, is being humble, isn't it? And for me, I think it's being open, and you can work with that. For any person that sits and goes, did that, I wouldn't do it again.
Yeah.
These are the reasons why I wouldn't do it again.
I went terribly wrong.
Yeah. But for whatever reason, I went with that. And as long as I can understand, as long as I can articulate the reasons that they went down that path, do you know what? We all try things, and sometimes it works out, and sometimes it doesn't. If there's a learning process and they're open to go, I learnt this from that, and I didn't do it right, then I think you've got someone you can work with there.
Yeah.
But just going through a recent, as you know, through a recent recruitment process, 3 things I look for in a director. Someone who goes into the boardroom, who can run a business. Someone who leaves the boardroom, who could lead a function. And someone who can work with the team of directors that they're working with. Those are the 3 critical things. And we've just gone through a process where I didn't make the decision on the individual. I had part of that, but we spent time with the whole of the team, and it was the team because, we're a team, we're a family. We need to welcome that individual. We all need to welcome that individual into the team, rather than just me, managing from above and dropping that person in. Yeah. I felt it was really important that, we welcome that person in collectively, rather than, that person just being dropped in.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that, and I think what you're able to do actually is really have very collaborative recruitment processes. And what I'm a huge fan of is working interviews as well. We operate it internally. Come in, work in the business for a couple of days. Let's really get a feel for you, and for you to get a feel for us. Because like you said, it's got to work. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. It just means that you're going to be better suited somewhere else, and we'll be better suited for someone else, or vice versa.
The last thing that I would want anyone is to come into the business and then go, that wasn't really what you sold.
Yeah.
And I take actual pride with sitting down with someone at the end of their probation period and go, because again, I think, whether it's 6 or 12 months, I actually think in a business you're new for at least a year. You don't even know everyone's surname.
Yeah.
I find it remarkable. What would you do in the first 30 days? What would you do in the first 60 days?
Take a breath.
You don't even know. You don't even know your way around. You don't even know people's names. So for me, I go through that process of onboarding people, give them the chance, understand the organisation, and then, like I say, at the end of a set period, let's just say 6 months, and actually go, is it exactly what I said it was? Is the role, is the business, is the culture, is everything what I said it was? And up until, I don't think I've had anyone up to now go, well, it's not exactly what you sold me. Because that's what you are. You're selling the business to them, and they're making a big commitment to join. So through that recruitment process, I love to be able. I treat people who want to be treated yourself. If it's going to be difficult, tell them it's going to be difficult. At least they go into it with their eyes open. So in the process, I try and make sure that's made available.
Yeah, that's great, and that's a brilliant kind of culture check-in as well. Actually, when you are asking those people that have come into the business 6 months later.
Do you know what? I've never really thought of it like that.
Yeah.
But you're right. That's a chance for me to actually check and go. I said the culture was this. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the secret to climbing? Well, is there a secret? And if there is, what's the secret to climbing the leadership ladder?
Perseverance.
Yes.
And
resilience.
Perseverance, resilience, and never ever underestimate a bit of luck. And don't take it for granted, and you know what, don't knock it. Everyone needs a bit of a lucky break every now and again.
Yeah.
But you, like I think I said earlier, you've got to have a safe pair of hands to catch that. But when that ball drops, you've got to be able to catch it.
Yeah, and I think, and you mentioned this earlier, and I thought it was a really good point, that actually when you kind of vocalise, say, actually I'd really like to be at this point, or in my head, you know, this is where I want to be, you'd be surprised how many people actually do reach back and try and help you to achieve it. I found that personally, and you said exactly that.
It's genuinely surprising that always have positive assumptions. If you reach out, people will want to naturally help you. I genuinely believe that. But that is all part of a mentality. If you go through life with a negative view, and you're never going to reach out, you're never actually going to find out. If you've got positive assumptions and you reach out, you might just be surprised.
Yeah.
And that really, from my psychometrics, that really falls in quite heavily. You know what? Always give people a chance. Never be surprised, if they let you down. But always give people the chance, because you might be really surprised when they don't let you down.
Yeah, and actually how good they are.
Exactly.
Okay, and so if there was any advice that you could offer your younger self or future generations, what would it be?
Just a little bit of slow down would be the one. So once I've got a bit of a head of steam up, I could say now, don't plan too far ahead, but I very much, was very driven, and maybe I could have slowed that and enjoyed the moment. I think if I could look back and say, if there's one thing that I would probably change about myself, would have been, enjoy the successes, enjoy the victories, enjoy the moment. I've always been, you was with me at the Make UK, and by the time I picked the award up and gone back to the table, I was talking about what we were going to do for the Nationals. So I think that's one thing I would say I would change. Enjoy
that's
the
really
moment.
honest, actually.
Enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
But I'm quick to say to the others, enjoy it. Maybe take a bit of your own advice. Take a bit of your own advice, Mark.
Yeah, no, that's a brilliant. I can totally relate to that. That's a brilliant one. Mark, are you ready?
I am ready, Scarlett.
Okay, let's go. What do you like to do for fun?
CrossFit.
As I know. What does equality mean to you?
A chance for everyone, and everyone gets a chance.
Yeah, I love that. What would you say to your younger self, in summary?
What would I say to my younger self? Enjoy the moment.
Yes. Who inspires you?
My mum.
And why?
She's just always got a positive attitude to everything in life, no matter what comes her way, and she's had some really difficult times.
That's brilliant. What makes an exceptional leader?
Vision, accountability, empathy, and a positive mindset.
That's really good. Fantastic. What does sustainability mean to you?
What does sustainability mean? Consistency, repeatability.
Repeatability, that's excellent. Yeah. And to tell us a motivational word or phrase to inspire others.
Success never comes in straight lines, it comes in zigzags.
That is fantastic. Brilliant, Mark, thank you. You've been an absolute pleasure, and it's been an honour to interview you.
No, thank you for having me.